Hey everybody, Kyle Nelson back again. This time I'm going to show you how to make an entry bench and shoe shelf. Now normally you would make something like this out of plywood, but I was honestly tired of making stuff out of plywood and wanted to use real wood. So what you see me doing here is drilling some pocket holes in the edges of the board. These are going to act as clamps when I put the boards together, since I didn't have big 3-foot clamps. Now here I'm just checking for alignment, standing the boards on end and starting to spread the glue. I'm not going to show this process for every time that I did it for this project because to be honest it was about 10 times, so there's no use in showing you that 10 times over. For the smaller panels I did have clamps big enough, but for the back of this project it was about 4 feet wide, so I didn't have the massive clamps needed for that. So that's why I decided to use the Craig jig. Alright, the lower part of this project is going to be a shoe bench, and we wanted to make some adjustable shelves. So instead of buying a shelf pin jig, I decided to just make one. First I took a piece of oak that was cut to the exact height of my shelf side and just drew a straight line down the middle and marked every 3 inches, spacing it out, just enough that looked good to my eye. Next up I drilled a hole that was the exact diameter of the shelf pins I bought. It was a 1/4 inch I think, but you can get them anywhere from 1/8 of an inch up to 3/8 of an inch. Now on the outside edges of this, I didn't want the holes to go all the way through, so all I did was put a piece of blue tape on my drill bit to act as a visual depth stop. You can see here, I stop right when that tape starts to hit the shelf. Now that that's done, I take my actual shelves and squared them up on the table saw, cut them to a rough length first, and then trimmed them up on the other side once I had a straight edge. Now before I put this thing together, I wanted to sand it just to save myself from having to get in all the little nooks and crannies. Makes a big difference. For the back, I suppose I could have sanded this down too, but it's a lot more fun to use hand planes, so I got the number 5 out and knocked some of those edges down and cleaned it up a bit. The next step was to assemble the base, the bottom shelf part. I just put the screws in the pocket holes that I had drilled and put it together. And that'll be plenty strong. For the upper part, we wanted to make a shelf kind of to display things or to put just random baskets in, so that's what we're doing next. Now here I start to lay out the upper shelf. It's going to attach to the big back that we made earlier. It's put together with pocket holes again, and it'll attach that way as well. I've learned that sometimes it's easier to clamp pieces together when you're putting them together, and sometimes it's not. I just kind of let gravity do the work for me on this project. And one of these days I'll finally clean up all those boxes that are behind me, but until then I'll just work in a tight space. Once I attached that top shelf, I just cleaned up the edges. There was a little bit of overhang, got out a smoothing plane and just kind of knocked off the edges of the top of the shelf as well. Now when I put this together I wasn't sure if it was going to be stained or painted, so I used the actual plugs just in case I was going to stain it. Looking back, I should have just used wood filler to patch these holes since we ended up painting it. For a really good video on how to plug pocket holes and the different methods, check out Fix This Build That. I'll link the video in the description. It was really helpful for me on this build. Now the final step before finishing on this project was to do a simulated board and batten on the back. I did this with some small sections of 2.5 inch wide poplar that I got from Home Depot and glued it on and nailed it on. cannot explain how useful it was to have a battery-powered brad nailer on this project. It made it so much easier than having to get out the air compressor. I put on the horizontal pieces first and then cut the vertical pieces to fit. It was actually really easy to get these aligned because the left and right pieces just set on the outside edge and the middle piece set right on my glue line right in the middle, so it worked out really nicely. Now, something you don't see in this video is the nails actually being a little bit too long. I didn't really account for that, so I had to go back and grind off all the nails sticking out of the back with a Dremel tool. It was no big deal, only added about 10 minutes, but it's definitely something to think about is to get the right length of nails. After that was done, all I had to do was put hooks on it and paint it. Now, I didn't record that because watching paint dry is no fun. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I know the client did, and I did too. See you next time.